Happy Tuesday, everyone. It's the Prep Queen, Ariel Epstein. Going to be kind of a short show today. Feels like a very slow day in sports, but we've got a lot of hockey, which is why NHL.com's Troy Perlowitz is going to join the show a little bit. In like 8 minutes, we'll get you some NHL props. I didn't do much NBA. There's not as huge of a slate. Injuries are so freaking annoying in this league. We could go through a little bit of them, but mostly I've been focusing on the NFL wild card. I have spent the last 2 days, and I didn't know how long this would take, but damn, I have spent the last 2 days creating the NFL prop betting guide for the wild card round. And all premium subscribers at the propqueen.com newsletter are going to get it for free. And if you don't subscribe, then you can buy it. So I'm going to have that released tonight. I seriously thought I'd have it done this afternoon, but it is like a lot of information, and I was trying to figure out exactly how to get all that information into a place that doesn't seem so overwhelming for everybody. Very excited to get the NFL prop betting guide for the wild card round of the NFL playoffs coming up. And at the end of the show, I will have NFL prop queen edges for the second half of games. If you missed it yesterday, I went through the first half of games for the NFL props. I went through about 8 props that I really liked for the first 3 games of the NFL wildcard slate. Check it out on the YouTube channel at Prop Queen Media. Marley, don't step on the charger. Prop Queen Media on YouTube. I'm going to do the second half of games today up until the Monday night games. So stay tuned for it's another. I have one prop for each team coming up at the end of the show. So definitely stay tuned to listen to one prop from each team in the NFL playoffs. Get ahead of the lines, people, so this way you don't miss any good numbers. You know, by the end of the week, those numbers in the NFL are going to go missing. NBA tonight, we've got a few games on the slate. I also think it's bizarre that Trae Young was talking to the Washington Wizards potentially to get traded there. They're playing tonight against the Magic, 7.5-point home dogs. Cavs, 6.5-point favorites at the Indiana Pacers. Spurs at the Grizz, Heat at the T-Wolves. T-Wolves laying 3.5. Lakers -5.5 at the Pels, and the Mavs -5.5 at Sacramento. I was waiting for a lot of the injury updates in the NFL. I mean, in the NBA. You know, you just never know these days in the NBA. And I wish that I had Trae Young questionable for tomorrow. These are all the Wednesday ones now. We do have some stuff too in the NFL. It looks like Kevin Stefanski, the Browns head coach, is going to be interviewing tomorrow for the Giants head coaching job. What one man's trash is another man's treasure. Is that what they say? I don't really see it. Wemby's a game time decision tonight. Another headline. Robert Saleh back in the mix for head coaching jobs after getting multiple looks last year. It looks like the Cardinals called for it. Don't you guys ever feel like there's just certain coaches that wouldn't be good head coaches? Like Robert Saleh is such a great defensive coordinator. Look at what he's done to the San Francisco 49ers this year, a team that we thought in week 4 was going to be out of it because of all of the freaking injuries. And Robert Saleh did a great job as DC in San Francisco. But he's going to be a head coach again? It didn't work. It didn't work. How the Jets didn't fire their coach. That's the Jets. Cliff, good OC, but not a head coach. Well, didn't he get fired too, Lewis? Didn't he get fired today? There were a bunch of firings today to coordinators. Not the Ravens, though. Todd Monken's actually received a request to be interviewed for the Browns head coaching job. Let's see. Who else was fired today? I know that the Cowboys fired their defensive coordinator. Let's see. It's all the way down here. I had them all. I should have written them down. What else did you guys find is interesting today? Saleh did not do worse than Aaron Glenn. But okay, look at what a good head coach does. And we're obviously going to leave out the year Aaron Rodgers got hurt. So let's go to the next year. Maybe it was a personality problem. Obviously, when looking at when you watched Hard Knocks and you saw how much Robert Saleh was glowing over having Aaron Rodgers and it just didn't seem reciprocated. Maybe there was a personality problem and Aaron Rodgers doesn't respect Saleh the way he respects a Tomlin. I just think it's Robert Saleh is a great defensive-minded coach, but he could not control the offense on the Jets. And I know it's the Jets, but like, look at what Aaron Rodgers has done now with Pittsburgh. They're in the playoffs by the skin of their teeth, but they're there. They won the division. Do the Jags have a chance against the Bills? Yeah, they do. Absolutely. I know they're a home dog, but they're a 1.5-point home dog at home. Like, their run game, the Jags, their run defense is the number one run D in the NFL. They are the best defense against running backs. Who has been the force on that Bills team not named Josh Allen? James Cook. James Cook's rushing for over 120 yards on the ground this year on the road. If the Jaguars, being the best run D in the NFL, can continue to be the best run D in the NFL, they're going to make the Bills one-dimensional. Not that Josh Allen can't throw the ball, but does he have any receivers he could trust to catch the ball? Because I don't know. The Bills don't have a true number one. They've got two good tight ends. They've got effy receivers. Could come up with big plays. Trevor Lawrence. Again, it's funny. I'm not really... Of course, Trevor Lawrence could throw deep, and they hope that Parker Washington's healthy. The Jaguars' defense is really what shines, and we all know that defense wins championships, right? Here's what I heard, actually, that was really interesting. Before we get to Troy Perlowitz coming on in a minute to talk hockey props. What I found interesting, I was listening to Fox Sports, Colin Cowherd today. Colin Cowherd said, we're kind of phrasing the argument around Josh Allen wrong, where everyone says, oh, Josh Allen, now there's no Lamar, there's no Patrick Mahomes, you have no excuse, you got to win. Yeah, but it's even more pressure. And it's more pressure for Josh Allen this year going into the playoffs, because if you lose to Patrick Mahomes, if you lose to Lamar Jackson, fine. You can't lose to Bo Nix. You can't lose to Trevor Lawrence. You can't lose to CJ Stroud. Pretty much every quarterback that's left in the AFC, Josh Allen is better than all of them. It would be mayhem if the Bills lost this opening round to the Jags. In fact, I would say the Bills might start calling for the head coach of the Bills, Sean McDermott's head, if that's the case. And I actually hope that happens, because I would love for the Ravens to get Sean McDermott to be their defensive coordinator. That would be fantastic. There is not one quarterback that Josh Allen can lose to in the playoffs in the AFC. Not one. NFC, obviously, once you get to the Super Bowl, different story, win or go home, whatever. Oh no, breaking news. The Ravens are firing John Harbaugh. Oh my goodness. I can't believe I'm shocked. He's out. The Ravens have fired John Harbaugh. My brother's going to be happy. Okay. Sorry, Troy. I asked Troy to come on early, but now I have to react to the Ravens firing John Harbaugh. I'm actually kind of sad. It's been an amazing run, 19 years for John Harbaugh being the head coach of the Ravens. It was time. I also believe that there has to be some kind of quarterback to head coach controversy going on. Overall, there has been one common denominator in all of these Ravens' horrible losses at the second half of games, and it's been their head coach, John Harbaugh. You can't lose every single game that you have double-digit leads. A lead by, they're leading by a touchdown or two in multiple games, and they blew it. And this year, the chemistry just seemed off. The same exact team, the Baltimore Ravens, they had last year. In fact, every year this team kept getting deeper. They kept getting worse. Ian Rappaport tweeted it out, guys. Harbaugh fired. So, I'm trying to get the words together. I really didn't think this was going to happen so quickly. Now I'm curious if they're going to fire the coordinators. They better fire Zach Orr. I could stand Monken. If Lamar's okay with Monken, I could stand Monken. They better fire their defensive coordinator, Zach Orr, along with John Harbaugh. Enough was enough. You can't waste Lamar Jackson's prime. John Harbaugh was the NFL's second longest tenured head coach behind Mike Tomlin. He coached 18 seasons in Baltimore. I just don't know who to get. I don't know. I hope they get someone defensively. I hope they get a defensive-minded coach. I hope they get someone that fires him up. Honestly, maybe they go for Robert Saleh to get some defense back on the Ravens. If Lamar likes Monken, then fine. But they need somebody who this team's going to listen to. They need somebody that's going to fire him up. And I love John Harbaugh. If you saw the video of him all excited after he ran out from behind in the kitchen in the video that they showed when the Ravens ended up clinching a playoff spot, when the Ravens ended up staying alive because the Browns beat the Steelers, and John Harbaugh comes running out and he jumps on the other guy and he's like straddling him and he's all excited. He obviously still has passion for the game, but I don't know how much the players still believed in John Harbaugh. It was time for a change. I've said this multiple times on the show. It doesn't mean that John Harbaugh is a bad head coach. It just means that the culture needed a shift. John Harbaugh's been there. I mean, isn't it crazy to think that we went from, we've literally had two head coaches in Baltimore, Brian Billick, and it went right over to John Harbaugh. It's been that long. Lamar couldn't even get the words out if he wanted his head coach back this year. It clearly looked like the team was not on his side. Here's the other thing, Joseph Rodriguez. So he said, it's not the kicker that cost him the job. It's not. First off, why did the Ravens not run the football another time with 12 seconds left and get their rookie kicker in better field positioning for that field goal? Maybe you got 4 yards out of Derrick Henry and it makes it a 40-yard field goal instead of a 40-yard field goal or a 44-yard field goal. The Ravens have just had so many mistakes, and how many more coordinators can you fire before you blame John Harbaugh? Sean, I know what you're saying, that Harbaugh's not the problem. It's not that his fault that Mark Andrews dropped the 2-point conversion last year. It's also not his fault that his kicker missed the field goal. It's also not his fault that Zay Flowers fumbled at the goal line. You know what's his fault? Undisciplined football. When your team consistently is fumbling the ball at the wrong time and players are consistently getting worse when they join the Ravens, it used to be the opposite. It used to be when you went to Baltimore, especially as a defensive player, that you got better. Roquan Smith's fallen into the weeds. We don't even know where he is anymore on the field. No one mentions his name. Not one player could come up with a big play. So, they're not making their players better. And that starts from the top eventually. They have fired so many coordinators in the last 5 years. Maybe it's Lamar. Maybe it's a personality problem. I don't know. But the talent is what's going to win you games, to your point, Shawn Michael. Lamar is the one on the field that has the talent. They can't get rid of Lamar. Not by the way he just played. He's still fine. They need a coach maybe that Lamar will listen to. Maybe someone that'll hype the defense up. Maybe they need a defensive-minded head coach to make the Ravens a little bit better on the defensive side of the ball so they don't blow these freaking leads. It was time in Baltimore. It's always sad because you know that your head coach has gotten you to the playoffs multiple times. John Harbaugh has made the Ravens relevant, very relevant. And you could say it's Lamar, but John Harbaugh has made the Ravens a very relevant and competitive football team. But through the last 3 years, that team wasn't scary anymore. And they weren't scary this year. They actually were a laughingstock this year. So John Harbaugh getting fired by the Baltimore Ravens I literally texted Troy before this and said, it's been a boring sports day. Come on early. Let's talk NHL props. I'm going to get in and get out of here really quickly because there's not much to talk about in sports today. And John freaking Harbaugh, my head coach, gets fired. I hope the Yankees take a page out of this playbook, by the way, because how many more times are we going to let Lamar Jackson and Aaron Judge ruin their freaking prime with these coaches that are making poor decisions? I'm so curious who the Ravens are trying to hire. I am so curious because you've got to imagine their head coach, Steve Bisciotti. Their owner, Steve Bisciotti, has somebody in mind. The scramble to hire John. Yeah. Everyone's like trying to interview Kevin Stefanski and Robert Saleh, and now John Harbaugh's available. And you know what? I do think for a long time that the Ravens owner, Steve Bisciotti, and John Harbaugh had a very good relationship, I would think. 18, 19 years at a place is a long time. This had to have been a hard decision. The nice thing to do is to allow John Harbaugh to walk so he can find another head coaching job if that's what he wants. There are so many jobs available. Oh, it's not Bill Belichick. No, Lamar is not listening to Bill Belichick. Lamar could care. Lamar would probably say, no, I'm not doing it. And I don't think Bill wants to work with Lamar. Robert Saleh's interesting. I don't want Raheem Morris. I don't know. Oh, gosh. Okay, I'm going to have to think about this throughout the day and see who I think that the Ravens should hire. But, damn. Just please don't bring anyone up internally that's never been a head coach before. Gosh. Or someone who hasn't been. Don't bring somebody in who hasn't been a head coach. I don't know who's going to Baltimore, Sean, because it also is going to be who wants to work with Lamar, who can work with Lamar. Don't you think it's a little weird when Lamar was up and his contract was up and there was all those problems with the Ravens and how they didn't re-sign him so quickly? No one else was jumping to sign Lamar. Don't you think that's a little fishy? That people weren't jumping at signing Lamar when the Ravens and him couldn't agree? He's not easy. I don't know for a fact, but he certainly doesn't seem like an easy quarterback to work with. I think Lamar just does what Lamar wants. So who's going to be able to handle that? I need someone, though, who's going to get this defense playing hard again. I need a defensive coach, a defensive-minded coach that's going to teach the team how to freaking tackle, that's going to be able to keep this team in games throughout the entire fourth quarter, that's going to make sure that the team doesn't take their foot off the gas every time they get a touchdown or two lead. John Harbaugh fired. Okay, he's been waiting long enough. Poor guy. I've kept Troy Perlowitz out in the wings for waiting because as soon as I was going to welcome him on the show, John Harbaugh got fired. I'm going to have to think about some coordinators and maybe some head coaches out there that seem like a good deal for the Ravens. I don't know. But please fire your defensive coordinator, Zach Gore. Troy Perlowitz joining the show. We're going to talk NHL props. Gosh, I was going to bring up, the biggest news I saw today was that Shesterkin's not out for the season. Like, that was the biggest news I saw until the John Harbaugh firing. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me. I was thinking about you Sunday night and I have a couple of Ravens fans because I went to school in Maryland and I was thinking about them all on Sunday night. That is a horrible way to lose a football game that in general, let alone with the playoffs on the line. I'm stunned too. I'm just with you. I don't you think they have a plan though? Like this is a really stable NFL organization. This isn't the Jets or the Raiders. This is the Baltimore Ravens. They're perennial winners. They have to have the next move.
I hope old-time GM Ozzie Newsome is in on the discussion because the Ravens have hired two very strong head coaches in its history. I absolutely loved both in my lifetime, in the Ravens' lifetime, since they're almost about the same amount of time. I'm a few years older than the Ravens. But I loved Billick. I love John Harbaugh. And now I hope that they make the right decision again this time around. I said this before. Andy Reid left Philly, and it was hard for Eagles fans. But at the same time, they were ready for the change. Then he goes on to win in Kansas City. I hope the best for John Harbaugh. I don't hate him. I hope John Harbaugh goes somewhere and wins too. But damn, it's a torn feeling as a Ravens fan. You love him, but it was time to go.
When they hired him originally, he was a special teams coordinator with the Eagles, right?
Part of the Andy Reid tree.
Yeah, like maybe Saleh's. Maybe you're right. Maybe Saleh's just has that Mike Shanahan trend. I don't know.
It's so hard when failed head coaches.
Yep.
To get them, you're like, is that is that like
It's a hard sell to the fan base, right? Like you
but
can't
like look at
replace
Nick
John
Saban.
Harbaugh with that.
A failed head coach in the NFL goes to Bama and he absolutely crushes it. What a legend. So you never know. But I don't think it's easy to work with Lamar.
It's a great point. Don't discount going to the college route. So I don't know what kind of college coachings are going to come through, but coaching agents are going to be on the phone with Baltimore. And talking.
I mean,
they're
a team ready to win. They just need more discipline. So it's going to be a personality match. Let's get into the NHL. Before we get to your props, I mentioned it earlier. Igor Shesterkin avoids a massive injury. What's the outlook for him and the outlook for the Rangers in his absence?
Yeah, and it was, Adam Fox went on long-term injured reserve too in a corresponding move. This is if you're a Rangers fan, this is pretty much, this is probably the end of the year for you for the most part in terms of competing. Your captain, JT Miller, is already on injured reserve. You lose not just the best player on your team, Igor Shesterkin, but probably a top 3 goaltender in the league this year. And Adam Fox is a top 10 defenseman. All in one game, all in the week. This is pretty bad. The outlook for Shesterkin, look, he's got a long-term contract. He signed. For the Rangers in general, they were struggling. The Winter Classic win was great, but this team has struggled to sustain success and find consistency in their game all year long. This might be a really huge move for the Rangers in terms of next year. And then looking at their roster for years to come, is it time to trade Artemi Panarin? Is it time to look maybe for Vincent Trocheck with a trade partner? The Rangers have a lot of hard decisions to make and not a lot of young prospects coming up. So this is it could be a change agent kind of move for the Rangers right now and into the future.
Oh boy, those poor Rangers. At least they got the nice win at the Winter Classic. Let's get to your props. And then I did see from Simpo that he had a question. We'll get to that. I'm going to start it just so that I can remember to ask it at the end. You're going with Darren Radish over his half a point. Why?
Yeah, we talked about Darren Radish the last time I was on. I think I had him for over. I took his point prop and he ended up with a hat trick. Since we spoke about him on New Year's Eve, he's had 3 straight multi-point games. This matchup with Colorado, and I have another pick in that game coming up, is probably the best team in the West against the best team in the East right now. Could be a potential Stanley Cup preview coming up. Darren Radish he's a great player. He's filling in on the first power play for Tampa Bay. He shoots so hard. If you like edge stats and deep underlying numbers, he leads the league in 90-mile-per-hour shot attempts. That's a really heavy shot against a Colorado team that's very good defensively. But a lot of those shots, since they're so good at clogging up the middle of the ice and covering the front of the net, maybe that long-range shot from a defenseman can beat a goaltender for Colorado and probably get push Radish over a point for tonight's game.
Then we've got the Colorado Avalanche. Over 2.5 shots on goal is in plus money, which is nice value for an over on shots on goal prop. How come this is in plus money and how come it's a good bet still?
So I think that's plus money because Marty Necas has not had a shot on goal in the last 2 games, and he was held without a shot attempt in his most recent game against the Florida Panthers. So I think a lot of the public is probably fading that. It's interesting to me because Marty Necas plays on the top line for Colorado. He plays with Nathan McKinnon. He plays on that top first power play for Colorado with Cale Makar. This is still one of the high shot volume player. So I think it's a mispriced kind of by the market here. And I like that value with the plus money with plus 2.5 shots. I think this is a player with bounce back appeal. He's going to be looking to shoot against a Tampa Bay Lightning team that one of the best at generating offense, but kind of leaky defensively when they are. So I think Colorado is going to score a lot of goals tonight. They're going to get a lot of shots on net. I think Tampa's the 6.5 total in this game, I think is going to go over, but I like Necas with the over 2.5 shots on goal.
High total there. On the opposite end of a good value play, you've got one at minus 150. If I'm laying minus 150, Troy, this thing better hit. Why should we lay this much juice?
Yeah, I probably want to look to parlay this with something else in the game, maybe a little SGP action. But Alex Tuch is a player for Buffalo. Buffalo was on a 10-game heater until their last game where they lost and broke that win streak up. But Alex Tuch is first or second on the Sabres on pretty much everything: goals, points, assists, shots on goal. He plays on that second unit with Josh Norris and Jason Zucker, who are both often injured, but when they do play, they're probably point per game players. So Alex Tuck has great exposure on that line. Again, probably want to find something to parlay this maybe in the game or with another pick, maybe that Matt Barzal pick that I have coming up. But I see Alex Tuck getting a point tonight. Also look at his shots on goal prop. That's also probably something where you can get some value. But I know that's a lot of juice to lay. But I feel pretty good that he's going to get a point tonight against a Vancouver team. We talked about matchups on my last appearance here. Against the Vancouver Canucks, who are bottom 3 in pretty much every defensive category, shots on goal, goals, penalty kill. I kind of like Tuck here in this matchup.
We love an anytime goal scorer. I know a lot of people love to throw those in a parlay and get some extra juice in there, but 2-1, not bad for Matt Barzal of the New York Islanders tonight. How come this matchup works for him to score a goal?
When I bet anytime goal scorers, I'm kind of looking at rivalries because I think they're interesting and it's always a little extra motivation on top of what underlying numbers would suggest. Matt Barzal is probably the fastest Islander player other than Matthew Schaefer. He plays on that first line. He's filling in for Bo Horvat as the first line center, and he's playing the power play with Matthew Schaefer against the New Jersey Devils. You know this because you grew up in this area, Ariel. The Islanders, they struggle to get headlines anywhere. They struggle to get headlines against the Rangers. And when they're playing the Devils, most people are looking at the Devils too in that matchup and not them. I think you got the little brother syndrome going on here. So I like Matt Barzal's game. He's really fast against a Devils team. They're trying to figure it out since Jack Hughes has come back. We saw Luke Hughes get booed the other night for the Devils. They're kind of a team that's up and down. They are coming off a win, so like maybe you get the Devils on a down streak and Barzal pops one in to hit on that pick.
And late tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern time, another higher total, 6.5. Columbus Blue Jackets, San Jose Sharks. Sharks are home dogs, but how come we can find value in this prop?
Yeah, I love it. This game's gonna. If I feel good about any game going over its total, it's probably the Sharks and the Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets are coming into this game off one of the worst losses of their season. They were winning 4-1 against the Pittsburgh Penguins and ended up losing the game 5-4 in overtime. Macklin Celebrini is an amazing player. I'm sure everyone's heard his name so far. He's still a teenager, which is hard to believe, and he has 63 points this year. He has 63 points, and the Sharks have 123 goals this year. That means he's factored on a Sharks goal more than half the time, which is incredible. Macklin Celebrini's on a 10-game point streak. Not much value on his point prop, but if you happen to have over 1.5 points, you can get plus money. I like Celebrini in this matchup. Again, teams that are struggled defensively are both Columbus and San Jose. Since December 1st, San Jose has allowed the second most goals in the league, but fifth most goals in the league has been Columbus. So I expect a lot of goals in this game, and I expect Celebrini to find the score sheet more than once.
From the chat, oh goodness, Diddy Bowl Predators versus Oilers.
I don't think I'm going to touch that one. That's an intriguing game. The Oilers they've made some questionable decisions. They just announced that Andrew Mangiapane and Trent Frederick are going to be healthy scratches for this game. Those were two big free agent signings this offseason for the Oilers. They traded for Frederick last year and then re-signed him to a 7-year contract. They're going to healthy scratch him. It's interesting for the Oilers. In that Pacific division, if you look at the NHL standings, the Pacific division is wide open for anybody, and each team has a negative goal differential. So I don't know what's going on in that division. I struggle to handicap it, but it's definitely an interesting matchup, that game.
Sean Michael said there's a trend here with Sam Bennett over half a point, scored in 11 straight.
Sam Bennett must be angry that he didn't make the Canadian Olympic team. That's my only guess. He has been on a heater. We've seen this guy heat up before. He scores from everywhere. He brings speed. He can score from high danger areas. And Florida, look, a lot of people, they're expecting Matthew Tkachuk. He's not going to play tonight, but he's coming back soon. He's one of their best high danger players anywhere, which means he goes to that front of the net and he gets his stick on pucks and he tips goals in and he could score from anywhere. Sam Bennett, can't wait to have him back as a line mate. He's been great lately. I like Sam Bennett point prop tonight. I like him for anything. Shots on goal, hits, anything.
And then this one from Emerald 2099, Blue Jackets money line, Kraken under 5.5 total.
Interesting. Again, the Blue Jackets money line. I would probably lean the Sharks in that matchup. They are on home ice, home dogs against a team that's kind of struggling. For the Blue Jackets, there was an interesting injury this morning. Mason Marchment, who they traded for recently, suffered an injury in morning skate, or re-aggravated an injury in morning skate, I should say. So he's probably not going to play. Even more reason why I would fade that pick. The Kraken have been, they played the Boston Bruins tonight. The Kraken have points in 8 straight, and they've won 7 of their last 8 games. They're a team that hasn't really beaten a lot of quality opponents, and I don't think Boston is a very quality opponent. But give the Kraken credit; they've been taking advantage of their schedule and playing really good hockey. So yeah, I could see them holding Boston to under 5.5 goals. Yeah, I could see that.
J-Main over 6.5 buff. Toronto money line.
Toronto's taking on Florida, and those teams. Remember, they met in the playoffs last year. There's bad blood between them. Those teams don't like each other. They're in the same division, competing for the division title. I tend to think Toronto. There's something still wrong in Toronto. They're still trying to find their game. They're still bitten by the injury bug. William Nylander hasn't come back yet from injury. So I'm still waiting on Toronto to actually break through and see if we see the real Maple Leafs come to life. But I'd fade Toronto with pretty much anything right now.
Troy Perlowitz, thank you as always, and thanks for waiting, by the way, for after all the breaking news on John Harbaugh. What do you guys got going on over there at NHL.com and NHL Edge?
Well, we just broke down Darren Radish's game. So if you go to NHL.com/edge, you could read an article on Darren Radish and why he's one of the hardest shooters in the NHL and really good and underlying performer. We'll be previewing the Olympics. The Olympics are going to be a huge thing in January and February for the league and for us at NHL.com/edge and NHL.com/fantasy. We have all your information covered. And good luck, Ariel. I'll still be thinking about you. I know you'll.
All I wanted to do today was finish my NFL wild card round cheat sheet so that everyone could have the edge in the props market. And now I have to worry about John Harbaugh and being fired.
So I'll say this is my last call, and I'm not a football guy. You brought me on to talk hockey, and I'll stick to what I believe in. But Harbaugh is going to the Giants. That's pretty much a lock, I think. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. He probably likes Jackson Dart. He's going to get back Scattaboo. He gets a young team that he can mold, unlike a bunch of these veterans who clearly don't want to listen to him. It would probably be a good fit, big market team. And if he wins in New York, then he would be king.
Remembered forever, right? Yeah.
Yeah. If all you have to do is win in New York and your career is set to go to the Hall of Fame. Troy Perlowitz, thanks as always. We will see you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh boy, my day just flipped upside down. I literally was so bored today. I was like, there is nothing going on. And I hope I'm not bored enough that Marley's doing something bad. She is quiet. Marley! I don't know where she is. Now I'm nervous that this girl is doing something bad. Anyway, John Harbaugh is fired. God. Oh, there she is. Hi, Mar. I was nervous. Anyway, John Harbaugh fired. I'm pretty shocked. I don't know why. I feel like a lot of Ravens fans are the same. Like almost, oh, here she is. I feel like a lot of Ravens fans are the same, where we're a little bit shocked because it happened and it's been 19 years, which is a very long time to have a head coach. But it was time. It was time for the Ravens to have a change at head coach. Culture change. Just please fire your defensive coordinator. He's not ready to be a head coach. I mean, a defensive coordinator. He's not ready to be a defensive coordinator, Zach Orr. Fire him. Okay, thank you, Marley, for arriving. Now I'm almost done. I mentioned that I want to just get this freaking prop sheet done. I've got the prop guide going out to the propqueen.com subscribers. I really want to get this done today so that you guys could have it and you guys could get the edge. Yesterday, I gave out a lot of different props for the early games in the NFL wildcard weekend. So these are the later games down throughout the weekend that I found some prop edges. If you missed yesterday, you can go to the Prop Queen Media YouTube channel, subscribe, and I have Prop Queen Edges Part 1 for NFL wildcard weekend, Edges Part 2, NFL Wild Card Weekend. get ahead of the lines now. Deep breaths. I don't know who a good fit is. I have to think about it. I got to listen to the experts. I just gamble. I like analytics. It's not my job to be a GM and find the best head coach for my Ravens. I'm going to find you guys the best props, though, for Wild Card Weekend. Starting with the running back for the Eagles, Saquon Barkley, over 13.5 receiving yards. So against defenses that are bottom 10 in receiving yards allowed to running backs, Saquon's averaging 29 receiving yards. He's averaging 19 receiving yards per game at home this year and 19 receiving yards through 4 home playoff games. The 49ers, 10th most receiving yards per game allowed to running backs. And in the last 10 games, 68% of running backs have gone over their receiving yard prop against San Francisco. You guys know how much I love the Niners tight end George Kittle, especially that trend, which we should have hit last week, over his longest reception at home in prime time. But this game's on the road and actually facing the hardest defense in the NFL to go up against as a tight end, the Philadelphia Eagles. So George Kittle under his receiving yards prop against defenses top 10 against tight ends. Kittle's averaging 53 receiving yards this year. And in his history against the Eagles, he's gone under in 2 of 3 with 17, 32, and 68 receiving yards. Philly this year has allowed the second least receiving yards per game to tight ends behind the Bills. 71% of tight ends have gone under their longest reception prop against Philly this year, and 68% went under their receiving yard prop this year. Sorry, my phone is blowing up right now. Gosh. Drake May under his completions, the Chargers at the Patriots. Somewhere there's going to be a little inexperience come in with Drake May in the playoffs up against the Chargers team with John Harbaugh's brother Jim, who's experienced in many playoffs and also has a quarterback experience in the playoffs and defense that's experienced in the playoffs. Drake May, no experience in the playoffs. Under 20.5 completions. You guys know I love to take under completions because you essentially have to fade a quarterback plus wide receiver or tight end. Drake May under his completions against teams that are top 10 in completions allowed. Drake May is averaging 18.5 completions, and at home, that's 18 completions per game. The Chargers, third least completions allowed. 76% of quarterbacks went under their completion prop against the Chargers, and 90% in the last 10 games. Oh, God, Sean, what did you forget? Justin Herbert under his passing yards in that same game. Justin Herbert, he actually on the road this year is averaging 20 yards less per game. Against top 10 pass defenses, Herbert's averaging 203 passing yards a game this year. The Patriots, 9th least passing yards per game allowed. 65% of quarterbacks have gone under their passing yard prop this year. 90% went under in their last 10. For the Monday game, the prop that stood out the most, Steelers tight end Pat Freiermuth under 35.5 receiving yards. Even Steelers fans don't understand why Pat Freiermuth has kind of fallen into like the way back of the playbook for the Steelers. And now you're going to get DK Metcalf back this week, the number 1 wide receiver for this team, after being suspended for 2 weeks. Freiermuth, he's facing a defense that is top 10 against tight ends. And against those defenses this year, he's only averaging 18 receiving yards a game. Houston, 7th least receiving yards per game to tight ends, with 61% of tight ends going under their receptions prop, 56% going under their receiving yard and longest reception prop against tight ends this year. And lastly, Dalton Schultz is one of my favorite playoff tight ends. Over 43.5 receiving yards. Against teams that are bottom 10 against tight ends, Schultz is averaging 67 receiving yards this year, 23 yards per longest catch. On the road, his longest catch doesn't really hit so much, but he's still averaging 64 receiving yards a game on the road this year when facing a defense bottom 10 against tight ends. Pittsburgh's allowing the 5th most receiving yards per game to tight ends. 61% of tight ends have gone under their longest reception prop. 63% went over their, I messed that up. 61% of tight ends went over their longest reception prop, and 63% went over their receiving yards prop. So Dalton Schultz, playoff experience always comes through big in big moments. Dalton Schultz is a tight end that I really like going into this game against Pittsburgh. And remember, those Ravens-Steelers games are always such a tough battle. I know they get a lot of time off. I'm sure it'll be fine. but it is always tough coming off Ravens Steelers, no matter which side of the ball you're on. So I am a little weary of the Steelers, even though they have a great Monday Night Football record at home under their head coach, Mike Tomlin. But tight ends do really well against them, so I would go there. Shawn Michael, okay, so the Knicks lost. Okay, whatever. I don't really care. I'm not a huge Knicks fan. I like them, but, it'll be fun if they won here in New York, but it's not going to make or break my day. What makes or break my day is that the Ravens fired their head coach, John Harbaugh. That's what made or broke my day. Now I really need to. Everyone's texting me. I didn't think that the Ravens would actually do it. I didn't think that the Ravens would fire their head coach. Harbaugh was confident he would return with the same staff and minor tweaks. That was not good enough. Now he's out. Baltimore has a very attractive opening. At the beginning of the year, I did not like that John Harbaugh said, why is everyone all about Super Bowl or bust, blah, 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 blah. That wasn't a way for us to go into the season, was it? Yeah, I just think that there was something not clicking anymore. So John Harbaugh out in Baltimore, big story of the day, broke today, just about a half hour ago. And if you missed anything, my live reaction to it, you could go to the YouTube channel, subscribe, Prop Queen Media on YouTube. I literally was on live and it broke. So you saw my live reaction, jaw dropping and everything. Go check it out. I'll post it to the YouTube page and you could go back and watch this if you rewind. Good luck to all your bets tonight. We will do NBA tomorrow. Today was kind of a shorter slate, but we'll do tomorrow NBA. Maybe we'll get a little NHL in there as well. NFL props, I'll give more. And also stay on the lookout. I'm going to do the NFL prop betting guide for the wild card. It's going to have all the information I said on all the NFL props yesterday and today, but also a lot more. I gave the whole list of all the prop edges out there, and then you guys could just choose which ones that you like best. Make sure to look out on social media for that. I'll be posting it soon. Good luck tonight, everyone. I will see you guys tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern time here on the Prop Queen Pod.